Hey guys, welcome back to Mondays with Michaela. This is my interview with Josie and this is part 1 of the interview. Let's get on to the video. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it. So how have you been coping with isolation and what have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
Well, I've been coping with isolation really, really well, actually.
That's awesome.
I have had lots and lots of opportunities come my way.
Yeah.
So I've done some pretty crazy things. I have obeyed the rules. Um, I was asked to be a part of a project called All Dressed Up and Nowhere to Go.
Oh, cool.
Um,
What's that?
So it's a project by Lisa Atkinson, a photographer, and she's photographed probably about 70 Peninsula people.
Cool.
And so you had to get dressed up. The brief was get all glammed up, but basically you've got nowhere to go. So I'd encourage you to check it out online.
Will do.
Yeah, it's going to be it's potentially going to be a book, a coffee table book. And so each person gets interviewed on how they were affected by COVID and that sort of thing. So it's not, but you have to check out the pictures. So I dressed up as a mermaid.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, and I got a friend of mine to paint me a bin. So she painted my bin, yes.
That's awesome.
So you have to go and check out and see what she painted on my bin.
Will do.
So my bin is the envy of everyone at the moment.
So can you tell me and everybody a little bit about how you became the Mermaid of Rye?
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, well, it was a funny story. So I'd been picking up litter for about 15 years and I wasn't really getting very far. People were sort of looking at me like it's a bit of a freak picking up so much rubbish. Obviously, it's changed now. So I decided to create the 1 ton challenge, and then so fortunate for me, I did a poster campaign called I'm Really a Mermaid. Anyways, National Geographic Traveller, I think it was, picked up the story and then they dubbed me the 1 ton mermaid. So I thought they were very clever.
How did your passion for the environment start?
Oh, gosh, I think I've always had an affinity with the ocean. Like I grew up in a small country town and we were an hour from the beach, an hour from the city and an hour from the snow. And any opportunity to go to the beach, I just loved it. And, it's pretty hard not to fall in love with the beautiful marine creatures that we have in Port Phillip Bay. And I think a lot of people don't realise that we share this, 264 kilometre coastline body of water, which has got thousands and thousands of species. So, yeah, I've been busy picking up litter actually through COVID. So, yeah, it's interesting.
So have you received any judgment or hate from what you are doing with the environment, being the Mermaid of Rye and all that?
Oh gosh, that's how you always ask those really tenacious questions, don't you? Look, I think it's sometimes difficult, I think, when you're passionate about something and then people often want to push a person to the front. And I always try to put principle above personality. So, my goal is to raise awareness, to allow people to understand the importance of their actions on the land. And that goes from, your general day. But I know that a lot of people don't like to be told. So I tried to lead by example. And look, I will be honest and say that I didn't realize how competitive people are. And I didn't realize that a lot of people wish that they had the limelight. And I'm very, very fortunate like you, where you and I have just gone about what we've done. And there's some generous people in our community who have nominated us for things. And, I think having the Dame Phyllis Frost, the Australian of the Year for Local Hero for Victoria, the Citizen of the Year, they're all nomination based. And sometimes some people can't be happy for you. And I think that that's a really important thing to understand is that that's okay. It's okay. We're not everybody's cup of tea, but I think we're most people's cup of tea. I hope that we are, because at the end of the day, it's not about us. We're trying to raise awareness to a subject that's often avoided,
So how much litter do you think you've collected altogether over this time? Because you've been collecting litter for a very long time.
Yes, I have. So I still continue to collect litter through COVID. I actually upload my photos now to the Australian Marine Debris Database. They give me a Google Drive that I just put all my photos to. So I've been getting up at 5:30 every morning, doing my run around the block with the dogs, and then getting home and going down, grabbing myself a coffee in my reusable cup. Thanks to to Freaky Tiki, they stayed doing reusable cups, just didn't hand in the lid.
Yep.
And I picked up, so I did 27 collections and I collected just over 90 kilos.
Wow.
And I suppose that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you think that 50% of that is cigarette butts. So in Rye, we have a really big problem with people actually littering on the beach. So normally the statistic is 80 to 95% of litter comes via your storm water.
Yep.
But in relation to Rye, we've got actually a really similar problem to Frankston. So Frankston, we've got that big sort of sand area, and, you know, everyone thinks they're a magician. They're like, watch this, and they push it into the sand. But unfortunately, when it comes to the full moons and high tides coming into autumn, what it does is sends that water all the way up to the high tide line, and then it's pulling that litter out. So unfortunately, all that litter that I'm pulling out is actually litter that's been littered on the beach during their time, sharing their time.
Wow.
So there's 25 million people in Australia, 12.8% of the population smoke, 6 in 10 Australians use the ground as an ashtray. So that's 1,920,000 people that are littering cigarette butts. So in all fairness, because, you know, I run the Only Butt campaign, in all fairness, the majority of people who are littering, so littering smokers, they don't actually realise that their cigarette butt is plastic. And as we know, plastic to the ocean starts in our street. And so it actually equates to 7.2 billion cigarettes littered annually. Yeah, I know. 7.2 billion cigarettes littered annually in Australia. So it is the biggest litter ticket item. So they say that butts, foils and wrappers make up to around 58% of litter found. Melbourne Water did some research and they estimate that around 10,000 cigarette butts are littered daily in the CBD, and 10% of those are ending up in our waterway.
So how do you reckon we could stop this from ending up in our waterway? Not just cigarette butts, but all litter, and getting people to stop littering?
Well, again, in all fairness, about understanding the problem is that one of the biggest things for litter is when you get your bin emptied. So there is a program called Love Our Street. It's in cahoots with Beach Patrol, and I did speak about them in my podcast because I think that that's such an exceptional project. So when you get your bins emptied each week, oftentimes litter is dropped and you think, oh, it's not much, it's this, it's that. But, you know, all drains lead to rivers, and rivers lead to oceans. We still have over 120 stormwater outlets entering Port Phillip Bay. And if anyone's ever picked up litter, you'll see that the litter can actually, when it's coming via that stormwater, you can see it left and right of the drain. So it's about people being a bit more conscious on the land. So whether you adopt your street after bin week, you know, go around and check up your street. Remembering to clean out the bottom of your car, because a lot of litter happens by accident. So, you know, mum pulls up, you've eaten a chocolate bar, where you're going to put it, you don't have a bin in the car, it's on the floor, open the door, the wind goes, whoop, it's gone. So that one. The other is helping out, you know, remembering that a lot of litter does happen by accident. And then the other would be educating with kindness, because no one likes to be told what to do. And I've found from experience that most people who litter aren't aware. That's not everyone, because there are people who are aware, but just a gentle conversation. And the Victorian Litter Action Alliance actually did research on littering smokers, and they said that they found that if a littering smoker could understand that what they were doing, so that what they were doing was having effect on something else, then they'd be more inclined to change. So when you look at, say, the Only Butt campaign. So we have that online now. Anyone can adopt it. What we do is we focus on educating those smokers that their cigarette butt is plastic and that, 80 to 95% of waste comes via stormwater. So what you do in the street. So I'd love to see a bigger voice for litter awareness, so that we can raise that standard, and then people can go, oh, it's not acceptable to litter my cigarette butt. Because like I say, it adds up to 7.2 billion and adds up to 58% of the litter found. So that's why I did the only butt, because I was like, you know what, I'm up for a challenge.
Yeah,
yeah. So, and if each person, whenever I speak to a littering smoker, I say to them, will you make a pledge to me today from this day forward that you'll bin your butt? And then they're like, yep. And I'm like, can you make one more promise to me? And they're like, oh, well, no. They're like, sure. And they're like, what's that? And I said, will you please tell one other littering smoker, like I've told you today? And I've never had anyone say no. Whether they have or not, I haven't seen those people again to give you that feedback. But definitely, if we can raise the conversation, raise awareness, and realise that that's not what we want for our environment, we'd be more inclined to change the perceptions and raise the standard and get better outcomes.